Greetings. Welcome to Speak Nerd and Enter.
Welcome, Speak Nerd and Enter. As always, I'm Sean. I'm your host. And sitting next to me is, of course, Rich, the man, the legend. Across from him, on the other far end, is Mark. Mark, give a wave there. And of course, the one you've all come for, the one you've been waiting to hear about. Here, after an outrageous and successful foray to 2029 to go back to 1984 Los Angeles, German for Whale's Vagina. His primary mission to bitch slap Kyle Reese, where he was said to have softly cooed, "I love you too, sweetheart." Part man, part machine. Underneath a hyperalloy combat chassis, but outside, he's living human tissue. He looks human, sweat, bad breath, everything. He's not just AI. He's A number one in your heart. The K-Man.
Hey.
Excellent.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well
Did you get
well
that
written.
one, or do I need to give you the...
Well written. That one was good.
Please. Although I would say I'm more machine than man now, if we're going to be true.
It's just that scene in there where he, where he bitch slapped Kyle Reese that I thought, that should be Kelly.
Kelly goes in the bathroom, starts to pop his eyeball out with a scalpel. Hello,
well,
guys.
I have a question for you with all that's going on in this world.
Okay.
This workaday wild world that leaves us guessing at every turn. As stories and stuff, we've talked about, settings and stories and books and movies and all that for quite some time. And it occurred to me, I haven't asked this particular question. For each of you, what would be the most impactful, moving, important, the most affecting story that you've ever experienced? Can be book, can be movie, can be whatever, but the most impactful one that you've experienced. Now let's bar anything religious, anything like that. We're talking about merely in the realm of the mortal. But what would you say? It doesn't have to be the best one, like, this is a top 20 this or whatever, but the one that affected you the most. If you had to give an answer, and you have to, what would it be?
I'm ready if you guys...
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. So, based on your parameters, I'm going to say the speech between Rob Roy and his sons in the movie Rob Roy, when he talks about honor and the gaining and the losing of it. That scene resonated with me so deeply, because for those unfamiliar, Rob Roy has gotten into trouble with the local government in Scotland in the pre-Middle Ages, just around the Middle Ages.
Yeah.
His family has been abused, and now
To say the least.
Yeah, to say the least. Yeah, well, we won't go into it, but now he's with his kids. He's got two sons, and he's on the lock, and he's having a conversation with his sons, and his sons ask him about what honor is, and he tells them that honor is the gift that a man gives to himself, and one shouldn't be concerned about the losing or the gaining of it, and basically increases your reputation.
Lost you, bro.
Your deeds.
Hold on, back up to increases your reputation.
Increases your reputation organically.
Mm-hmm.
Your deeds are your words, your thoughts, which become words, your words, which become deeds, your deeds, which become actions, and your actions, which become habits. That resonated with me so deeply. I've never forgotten it. And it changed the way I lived my life when I saw it. A lot of things about that movie, and my profession and stuff, I mean, that all became integrated. And when I started writing, that's one of the things I wrote about to try and transmit that to people. It was very important to me. And I know, Rob Roy, it's a lot of people, wouldn't say, oh, it's a classic, right? But that you said what scene resonated with me
Yeah.
very deeply, and that resonated with me to a point where it's just stayed with me over and over and over. How's that?
You know, Rob Roy, I think, is an underestimated movie. I thought it was good. I thought it really was. I remember seeing that in the theater, and I thought Liam Neeson, who, by the way, this was before his resurgence and all of that.
Post Excalibur. Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
but he was very good in that. He was excellent,
And so was Tim Roth. Amazing.
Yeah, but I mean, especially him because he
Oh, yeah.
put a lot of passion into it, which went with the storyline. So I do remember that, and I think that's that is a very powerful one. Yeah, very powerful. Okay. All right. And what about you, Kelly? Man.
Yeah, no, I was thinking about this the other day. I'm gonna go with the Chronicles of Tao. Yeah, when was that? That was in the 90s when I read that, right?
Yeah.
Everything about that book, because as I was thinking about it, I've bought so many copies of that book over the years to give to other people. It's just one of those extraordinary stories. I mean, I still quote from the book. There were so many parts of it that impact sort of my worldview and how I see myself and sort of what the journey of the self is. Yeah, I think that book, if I was to recommend anything to anybody to read, I would say, if you've not read the Chronicles of Tao, go get yourself a copy, read it now, thank me later. And yeah, that book by far. I was in Portland. I went to Powell's Books once because I was going to go pick up a copy for somebody as a gift. And as I walked to the bookshelf where it was, this young man, and who I assumed was his girlfriend, walked up next to me, and he's pointing at the book and is telling her how amazing this book is. And I just thought, wow, look at that. I mean, it's not just, there's a lot of people who have had a very deeply personal connection with the stories in there. Truly phenomenal.
That is a good pull, Kelly. That is a very good pull. I should have guessed it, and I didn't, and I'm ashamed of that. That was an excellent pull. No, really, because I remember Kelly and I were going to the same martial arts school at that time, and I can't remember if it was Cisco who recommended it to me, or if it was Scott. It was someone there had recommended it to me, and I started reading that. I think Cisco, but I'm not sure. And started reading that, and it had a very deep impact on me. And I remember
and then you
that
had
very
recommended
well.
it to me, and that was the thing. You kept telling me, you should read this, and I remember I was extremely resistant at the time. And I don't remember what sparked me to finally pick it up and look at it, but I do remember from page one, I was sucked in. Like, immediately starting to read it, couldn't put it down. Every second I had, I found myself going back to the book to continue getting through it, because I mean, just you're so interested in the development of the story from the very beginning to its ultimate end, and even in the end, you're like, as most good books should, you find yourself wanting more of the story, wanting to know where does it go from here, but having that left open ended, really, really, really interesting.
Was there any particular part in it that spoke to you more than another, or particular parts or something, or aspect of it that spoke to you?
Yeah, in the beginning, when he's still living with his family before he goes to the Taoist monastery,
Mm-hmm.
The writing there is some of the best I've ever had eyes on, right? I mean, just the picture it paints of sort of the lifestyle that they led was very fascinating to me. But I think in that, the one thing that I quote the most often is where he's talking to the Grand Master at the monastery, and the Grand Master is telling him essentially no magic to shun magic, right? And sort of the message that contains is, know as much as you can, but don't be locked into all these things that you've learned.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember one of the things that, because there was a lot, but one of the things that touched me the most about that book was the lessons in humility
Oh yeah.
that it
100%.
gave. And
100%.
especially when it had um, uh, Wang Zeping show up to challenge, or not Wang Zeping, excuse me, the old man show up to challenge Wang Zeping to a battle or a sparring match, if you will, and how this Chinese hero, martial arts hero, who had essentially been undefeated and all these mystical tales told about him and all of that. And here's this 80-some-year-old man who is just handily beating him,
Yeah.
and with no effort, to the point
Yeah.
where his master starts panicking and using techniques he'd never even shown them, and all this stuff. Nothing's working. And then finally, when the old man could have just, at any point, could have just killed him. You know what I mean. With the techniques he's using, they would have been. He stops it. He bows to him and says, "Thank you so much. Thank you." Thanks him. The man was losing, but he thanks his opponent as though he were winning and beating him. And for Wang Zeping to then have the humility to say, "No, thank you for that, for the lesson." I took a lot from that there is so little reward in ego in the end, that self-validation, as opposed to the journey of the self and becoming something more expansive. That part really spoke to me. And so much, like you were talking about no magic to shun magic and all, so many of the philosophies that his master taught him was just so well done, so well written. I would say, as a matter of fact, for me, I would put that on the level writing skill and writing ability, for poetry of the philosophy and how well it flowed and the story. I would put it on the level of Lord of the Rings for that.
Oh, easily. Yeah, easily.
And I don't mean that to diminish either. I mean, Tolkien was amazing. And that's what I mean, is he was the only one I know of who could write for God and the devil and make it sound so real. And so for Chronicles of Tao to strike a chord that way, very different time frame, very different culture, but to strike that same amount of awe and humility from what you were reading there was just so. You're right, Kelly. That was very touching for me.
I mean, it's a great journey into the self, right? Of what that journey is, and especially to follow somebody from being a young boy all the way through and well into adulthood, and sort of that journey of self discovery, and learning what it means to truly master oneself, or at least attempting to. There's so much to take from it. That's why the book is so phenomenal.
I wonder, on that same point, and I'd like to discuss this a little bit after we hear from Mark's worthless choice, what it is.
Like the Bible or something.
Yeah. Paddington 2 is what he's going to.
I was going to go with green eggs and ham, actually.
That part.
Clifford the big red dog.
But after we're done, bringing up our particular examples, I would like to know, what it is, do you think, that keeps people from accepting those recommendations so easily? Like you said, you were not inspired to read it for a very long time, and I say that because I know what that's like when you have someone tell you, "Oh, you got to see this, it's going to be so," and you kind of blow it off. And I don't know exactly why. I'd like to discuss that after we're done.
No, I've got an answer. Go ahead.
Mark.
Yeah, well, like I said, my initial thought was you can't just pop that question on somebody and expect them to have an answer. And so I'm thinking of all the movies I've seen and the books I've read. And, there's a difference between ones that are really cool and memorable and ones that have affected your life. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So
huge
I loved Reservoir Dogs. I don't know that it affected my life, but it's what, it's like, I haven't
changed
lived my life by the philosophy of Reservoir Dogs, right? But seriously, green eggs and ham is, and I'm kidding. So as I thought about it, for real, I'm going to go with the War of Art. right? Not to be confused with The Art of War, which is the very famous Sun Tzu thing. So
Right.
there is a book by Stephen Pressfield called The War of Art. And it's written he wrote it for people who were like, writers, novelists, whatever. But it is applicable to anybody who's doing anything of a creative bent. And the real gist of it is, whenever you try to exercise your creativity, you're gonna, write that novel or do whatever, paint that painting, and write that song, whatever it is. The universe will resist you. You're going to run into this spirit of resistance every time we as humans try to, be more, do more. You will find that resistance. And I've found that to be true in all aspects of my life. You know what I mean? Things just don't go swimmingly when you decide, hey, I'm going to go do this thing. There's always that kind of universal resistance. And so that's kind of the main theme of that book is this resistance exists. You have to expect it. And true greatness is only going to happen when you fight your way through that resistance to whatever your creative endeavor is. So I think that is probably a book that has had a very profound impact on the things that I do or want to do. So
When did you read that?
10, 12 years ago, I think.
Oh.
Yeah, day before yesterday.
Just
I'm not done yet. I've only read the back cover. So
First 2 pages.
no, I want to say like I first read it. I just moved back from Boston, so it was in the last 10 years.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Right
yeah.
on.
So it wasn't something I read like as a kid or as a teenager or whatever. And again, that's you
I like the premise.
threw
of
this
what-
question at me, and I'm like, what did I read when I was 15, 16, 18, 20 that has had this big, long last, I mean, The Hobbit obviously was the first book I read that did not have pictures in it, like Green Eggs and Ham. And that had a profound impact, but I can't point to a specific reason, why. I love the fantasy and the science fiction,
Mhm.
but that one hasn't had like yes, it's had an effect, but I can't point to why, or other than it led me to some cool people that I played D&D with, or it led me into, maybe some aspects professionally that I'm trying to do things with, but not like, not a thing I can point to and go, yeah, this was that linchpin. I read that and the heavens opened. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Can I add a Kelly sparked something that reminded me? Can I add one that is really?
No, I'm sorry. Your time is done.
Can I please?
Sean said one. Yeah.
Can I please add this one? Well, I'm gonna. So
Mark, cut
the
him
movie.
off. Well,
Yeah, go ahead.
Mute.
The film second. So Kelly said, he's bought the book and given it to other people. I have done the same thing with a film, Secondhand Lions. The film Secondhand Lions and the speech that Robert Duvall gives in it, and the scene in the bar. I think every man, and especially every man with sons, I've mentioned this in the past, should, because it's on my top 10 favorites. But I have actually bought multiple copies. I actually have a copy upstairs right now waiting to go to somebody. Just whoever has never said, I've never seen Secondhand Lions. Okay, here you go. Here's the DVD. That movie, I watch it over and over. And every time I watch it, it both makes me emotional and makes me think that, yeah, this is a good film. And the lessons taught in that are lessons that are being lost right now in this world and need to be taught again. So thank you. I just wanted to get that out there because it is actually very important to me. So,
well, I find it interesting to see, what the choices are, because if you ask someone what a favorite of theirs is, what are the top 20 or, top 10 best, this kind of thing. But then you ask them which one affected you the most. I think you find generally that you'll get different answers for those. And that always intrigued me. I think the one actually I think they both show a bit of truth about a person, but I think the one which affected you the most shows a bit more intimate part of yourself, something you were willing to learn. You know
Well,
what I mean?
I think within I think Mark's right is that in what you're talking about there was the idea that there's lots of things that you like, lots of things that are well done, what's affected you, that's fine. But I even think within that, like Rich's answer was a segment of a thing.
Right.
It wasn't even
Yeah.
the entirety of the movie. And there's lots of segments of things that resonate. I've seen tons of movies where I couldn't tell you what the hell the movie was about, but I can recite one scene from something.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Sean said it doesn't have to be the complete work, just something that
No,
affected
not at
you.
all.
Yeah.
Not at all. Just what affected you the most. Something that if you had to choose would be the thing that affected you the most. And Kelly, I can absolutely see that. I think that's a brilliant choice. And if somebody asked me which would have been yours, I probably would have said the same thing. I probably would have said, yeah, Kelly's is going to be that. And I'd give those reasons and stuff because it meant so much to both of us. And
Yeah.
we'd spent so much time talking about it,
Now, Sean, you can't get off the hook. What's yours? Let's go.
Well, that one actually would be.
Nope, that one's already taken. You got to pick something else.
No,
Nope,
because I
go
gave
back.
it to Kelly.
No. Yeah, no, but he jumped in line in front of you.
No, he didn't.
I mean, it was so impactful. The book was so impactful to me that I actually reached out to the author several years ago,
Oh, awesome.
and
yeah,
had him autograph a copy and send it to Sean.
Let him know.
Yeah,
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, I have that.
All right, I'll
in my
allow it.
bedroom. Yeah, I have that in my
Oh.
bedroom. As a matter of fact, yeah, I got it. I used to have it actually at my desk at NRA. Had it up there as one of my prized possessions that I, had amongst all my other stuff on my me wall. I had that over there. That meant that meant a lot.
It's like my blade that I have.
It's funny when I talked to him, when I contacted him and asked him to do it, the question he asked me is why do you want what was it about this book that you want me to call out as to why it was so impactful to you? And so I mean book is amazing. If you've not read it, please go get it. Do yourself a favor.
Yeah, very good. Very good. And I loved, the thing that I loved the most about it, I think, Kelly, I don't know if I could say the most. One of the things I loved the most about it was that it was told from that different culture, that
Yeah.
different upbringing. And not to say, people say that like it's something unattainable, like I'm going to sit here and look at it like through a piece of glass and say, oh, what a wonderful little, pastiche of this or that. No, I mean it as a member of the human race that I was able to see this and experience it because of the way he wrote it.
Yeah.
And it was an experience that otherwise I would not have had.
Yeah.
If that makes sense to you. So
yeah. But back to
really
because you asked another question though, because you wanted to hear Mark's answer. But you asked the other questions. What keeps people from accepting certain things? Like that book, for example. You said, "Here, Kelly, you should read this," and I was like, "Nah, I don't have time for that."
Right, because we've all done that, right?
Yeah.
We've all done that where we've heard somebody say that to us. Oh, you got to see this, or you should see that's amazing, and all that. And it seems like the more that amazing they say it is, the more we tend to resist it. Not always, but many times, and I don't know why.
I don't think there's any one answer to that question.
Oh,
I think there's a multitude of things. I think one in certain cases it's an ego, that's sort of armored in arrogance, right? That ego that I know my way, I know what I'm doing, I know what I like and screw everybody else. I think there's also a fear that keeps people from accepting certain things. The fear of what it could cause, what it could mean to you, especially if it's something like that. Here I am telling people, go read this book. It's so deeply impactful. That's a fearful process for a lot of people to say, hey, okay, I'm going to go take a long, deep look into myself, and that can be stressful. And even fear of challenging sort of the comfort. Even if your life is crap, you're comfortable in that crap. I mean, it's your crap. You've molded it, and so that idea that you're going to look at something that could cause you to look at that a different way, also in its own way, produces fear, and you don't want that. You don't. It's weird. People. Hell, I just watched a video about this the other day. What is it? It's learned helplessness, right?
It's a dog sitting in hell saying, "This is fine."
Yeah, well, that was the experiment that they talked about in this video. Is that this experiment done with dogs, and so they took these dogs and they applied electrical shock to them to see if the dog would react, and after a moment, the dog began to just sort of become accustomed to it and didn't know how to escape out of that thing. And until you taught the dog how to move off of this, and I'm not doing justice to the experiment, but it's you had to teach the dog to get away from that. It can change its own environment, and it took, they said, on average 2 times of teaching the dog that it could move out of this environment for the dog to actually know it could do it. And they've repeated the experiments with human beings and different sort of stressors and things like that. But it's this thing, you become sort of stuck in this world that you think you know, especially when you're young. When you're young, you're so bloody arrogant to think that you know life in total. And so that idea that somebody's telling you, hey, here's this other really important thing that's going to change your life, no, you think you've got it all figured out. And so, yeah, I think there's resistance from many fronts.
I also think there's a bit of you don't know me, you know? And so for you to sit there and tell me what's going to be good for me,
You don't know my
speaking
struggle,
to
man.
the youth aspect
Yeah.
of it, especially,
Yeah.
you're too old. I know you had your time and you guys, your ways and all that. You don't understand. We're going to be this and that. We're going to be better and different and all that stuff. And it's not really about that. It's about sharing something that helped with the hurdles of life. And instead of being able to see it as the helpful advice, hopefully that it is, like you said, your arrogance blinds you to that and makes you think, I don't need you, And there's also a bit of, if it does work out, that means I owe you in some way. I have to give you some sort of props for being able to get me on this path, and I don't want to do that. I want it to be, mine or one of my friends or something that I had some sort of control over, so that the glory is mine. That kind of thing. I think there's a bit of that too.
I also think that you need to be ready for the message, right? There are important books or important lessons to be learned, but you have to be in the right mindset to learn them. You know what I mean? So you come along going, oh, this book's great. You should, look at this. Am I ready for that book? Right? I don't know. You know what I'm saying? Like, and that's a thing that we can't know. But there is something to be said for, man, if let's say you were further along this emotional journey of knowing yourself and you're like, wow, I've got to this point, I've read this book, it's great, I want to share that with other people. Like, we all understand that, and you go share it with somebody who is not ready to take that, to be at that level or whatever. You know what I'm so yes, and that goes right into the arrogance of the person, or and I'm not even going to say it's all arrogance. Sometimes, you're not ready for.
It's ignorance. It's not malicious. It's just not being
right. It's where they are in life, where they are on their journey. Maybe they're not ready for that, but then when they're ready, and that thing lands in their lap, and they see it or read it, and they're like, "Oh, okay." So I can I can think of a couple of examples where I wasn't ready for the thing when it was first introduced to me, but later on, oh, that thing's awesome. You know what I mean? But at that moment when I first had the opportunity, no,
and you know what? I think there's a point in that I struggle with, because at this point in my life, I am one of those people who likes to dispense the wisdom that I've gleaned over these many years.
We know.
And he bought himself a throne.
And he's going to shave his head, orange robe.
Rub my belly.
The thing that I struggle with sometimes is that element of, you think that just because somebody didn't accept it in the moment that you said it, sometimes you can perceive that as a personal slight. But I think what you're hitting on is what I believe to be the functional part, is that, look, man, you make recommendations all day long. Like, I've recommended this book to people and they've never picked it up ever. Doesn't mean they won't ever. But you're right. I think it's that point of people have to be in the space where they want to take something on or look at something different or something new. In most cases, when you're making these sort of recommendations, you're nothing but a gardener, just throwing seeds in the field, and you're hoping at some point it sprouts forth into something.
I think it also shows what they think of you. That when you give a recommendation, how seriously they take it, or part of that is because the recommendation is colored by how they see you.
Mhm.
If it comes from someone like Oprah's book club thing, right? How many of those books were people reading simply because Oprah said, "Hey, read this book,"
Yeah.
because that's how they viewed her.
Oprah didn't
Whereas
even read the book.
if someone in their personal life, someone who meant a lot to them, but they saw them as a certain type of figure,
Yeah.
it would color the recommendation and make it less valuable to them because they're figuring it's coming from this angle rather than being simply what it is. You know,
Yeah.
the message it's bringing has nothing to do with this person. It is its own thing. This person just recognized that there's value in it and wanted you to see it. But rather than see it like that, you see it as though it came from them in some way. You
Yeah.
know, I think there's a bit of that too. So when you do those recommendations, I think you can see a little bit of how you're viewed in other people's eyes as well. And I think that can be interesting, you know, on its own, and has certain merits of its own too. And but yeah, I agree with you. Having the patience to wait and see if that happens. It's difficult to force it on someone, and I don't know as it has the same benefits, even if it does have an impact. I'm not sure it does, but yeah, having the patience to do so without taking insult can be quite trying sometimes, especially when it means that much to you.
Yeah,
You
because
know,
in many ways we are all the old man from the story that entered into that fight. You know, he both learned and taught at the same time,
yeah.
right? And you're fulfilling both roles simultaneously, you know, all the time.
Hey,
So
Mark.
Did you ever see, by the way, that clip, Kelly? Remember I told you about that dude Ramsey Dewey who went to see the Tai Chi master? Ramsey Dewey's
probably saw it, but yeah, I can't remember
he's the
it.
guy who was a cage fighter. He was a mixed martial artist,
Hmm.
and he's in China. He lives in China, and he heard about this guy, and he was invited to go up there and see him. And he just did classes outside some factory in like northern China, and it's 80-year-old guy, and he goes over and meets the guy, and the guy, you know, says, "Hey, let's spar," you know, and he says, "Okay, well, we'll go ahead and spar," and he didn't take him seriously, and the old man whipped him. I mean, whipped him easy. He said he's sitting there breaking holds and locks and all that. He's making me look stupid. And he says the old man took him to task and said, "Don't. I'm not asking you to take it easy on me. I wanted to spar. Do something. You're a fighter. Do something." And he thought, "Okay, all right. I'm gonna show him, and I'm gonna put him in a few locks or something, shut this down, and be done with." Same thing. Old man whipped his butt. 80-year-old man beating this guy who's like 20 some years old,
Yeah.
just beating him soundly. And then
Champion
he
fighter.
figured, okay, all right, I'm going to have to up my game and pull out all the stops. Made not a bit of difference. And then afterwards, once that happened, it was just like the story, man. Once that happened, he's like, "Thank you so much for the lesson. You know, I appreciate." How long did it take you to become a master? Because he always thought of Tai Chi as the slow moving old people's thing and all that.
Yeah.
He said, "How long did it take you to master this?" And he said, 80 years, you know? And he took it to mean, this is the part where I disagree with him. He took it to mean, well, it takes you that long to master it. You know,
Yeah.
that stuff. It's not what he meant. He
Ongoing.
meant it,
No.
you never master it. It's just, you
Ongoing.
know,
Yep.
Yeah.
right. Yeah.
Yeah.
As old as you are, that's as long as it takes, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, I
That's
thought
the
it was a
difference
beautiful
between-
I
story.
literally just saw a video recreation of that in the boxing ring. You know,
Yeah.
some
Yeah.
20-some-year-old boxer and some old guy. He's wearing like one of those like newsy hats or whatever, and you know he's not wearing gym clothes. He's just got whatever, and you know they end up in the thing, and that you could see the look on the young kid's face, like, okay, I don't want to hurt this old man, and that guy mopped the floor with him.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you can tell
Yeah.
I was like, this guy's been boxing and or coaching. Like I don't know the background of the guy, but you know he mopped the floor with this kid, and you're just like, yeah, that guy's got some skills, right? And
That's been
yeah,
retold.
like
That's been retold in a number of movies. There's the one with the actor who last played Mad Max. What's his name? Help me out.
Tom Hardy.
Mel Gibson.
Tom Hardy. Yeah, there's the one with Tom Hardy where. Thank you. No, the one that they've redone that multiple times in various films, and it's always impactful, like Sean is saying. Where you know he's like, he's an old washed up guy, and the young buck's in there, and he's like, I don't want to hurt him, you know. he's not a challenge, and then he gets in there and just mops the ring with the dude.
Yeah, it's almost a trope in certain aspects, but there's a lot of truth to it.
Well, that's why I love it when it's real. When it really happens. I love that because the truth of it is evident. It's just doesn't take place very often because very few human beings put the effort in to become that masterful at something.
Yep.
Why do we then as a society, and this gets into sort of movies and stories and things like that, why do all the movies and stories emphasize then young people and their accomplishments as being greater and more impactful than those of people who are older?
I don't know. And I've said this before. I think you guys have heard me say this before. When I watch a martial arts movie, I don't want to see the student avenging the master and all that stuff. I want to see the master fighting. When Yoda's sitting there teaching Luke's whiny butt, I don't want to see Luke out there doing his thing. I'm going nuts when Yoda's lifting the X-Wing out and he's fighting Dooku and all. That's who I want to see. So I don't know. I don't know why you have Jean-Claude Van Damme going and kickboxing and doing the Kumite and all that.
Blood sport.
Right. I don't want to see him doing it. I want to see the master doing it, I don't know why people are like that. Maybe it's because the transference, they figure, okay, if this one can do it, then I can do it. The master, of course, he can do it. He's been doing it this long and all that stuff. And I can't do that. But wow, this guy who's only been doing it through the montage is able to, get this done. Maybe it's more accessible that way. I'm not sure.
Tarantino did it to an extent in Kill Bill with Pai Mei. That was, that was another example.
That was actually the only part of that movie that I truly liked.
Same here. Yeah.
Was the cruel tutelage of Pai Mei. If that whole thing had been just that, 10 minutes or something, that would have been an amazing, amazing movie.
Yeah. All I can think about is how different the Last Dragon would have been had Bruce Leroy's sensei come into that theater to watch the movie when Sho'nuff showed up. I mean, man, that would have been a completely different movie.
You cannot disparage the glory of Sho'nuff.
I'm not. I love that movie. I made my wife watch that movie with me.
Why has South Park not done any homage to, The Last Dragon?
Did you know that? Do you know who I just learned this the other day. Do you know who auditioned for the part of both Bruce Leroy and Sho'nuff? Take a guess. Which actor?
I don't.
Denzel Washington.
Oh, you did?
Yes. For both
I was going to say Snipes.
Could you imagine Denzel Washington as Sho'nuff? It would be amazing. Amazing.
Yeah, that's one of those lightning in a bottle movies. I can't imagine anyone else in either role.
No.
You know what I mean? Like, it just worked. It was so campy and over the top.
I think I have a copy of it back here.
I mean, okay, you know what I mean.
Look, you possess the power of the glow, Mark. I see it every time I look at you.
Yeah.
I want to change my answer. The Last Dragon was the most impactful.
Mark, can I make a request? Can you make sure in the description for the show that you add these suggestions just as a list, please?
Yeah, I can't make any promises.
Okay. Thank you. Listen, thank you for almost trying to make an effort.
Yeah, I'll talk to the editor, but he's kind of a jerk.
I appreciate your lackluster enthusiasm.
He'll put a comment down there for a list of the recommendations. Stop periodically through the video.
Yeah, listen along with a pencil and a piece of paper.
Oh man! All right,
Sean, this is a very good topic. Good job.
Yeah, I can't walk the path for them. They have to find their own way.
That's right. They do. Put in a little bit of work. Come on, Yeah.
You have to find your own way. You have to get up those steps with that water.
So, all right. Well, anyway, I appreciate that, guys. Anything else that you wanted to touch on before we go, or no? I didn't mean to cut you off. I can't remember if any of you wanted to talk about something.
No, we put everything we wanted to talk about on the back burner because not everyone's shared it. So
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, I enjoyed that talk. Thank you very much, guys. I really did.
Yeah, very good.
And always, man, I thank you, Kelly. That was nice to go down that memory line. I really appreciate that. I appreciate that. I gotta bring that book out and start rereading.
Yeah, I
that
just put it in my Amazon cart during this discussion. So
I hope you like that, Mark. I'd be interested to see what you think of that. I really would. So
yeah, there's no audiobook version, so it could be years before I get to it.
I don't know if you could
just have Sean read it to you over the phone.
Sean, call me every morning as I drive to work and just read it to me on the phone.
I'll do it in my Szechuan accent. Yeah, I don't know.
China is here, Mr. Button.
Yeah. All right, guys. Well, I appreciate it very much. Thank you for that. I really do. And I will see you guys next time.
This concludes our Speak Nerd and Enter broadcast.